second of the 2025-2026 Future Leaders Fellowship webinar series. My name is Paul Mândraș. I am an expert at the United Resilience Center, and I'm really glad to have this opportunity to meet our great fellows and have a presentation, a more theoretical presentation on security, resilience, and more specifically democratic resilience, because this is the main theme of this year's fellowship edition. And of course, theoretical concepts, I think, are really important to be acknowledged and understood. And this is why I have prepared this presentation for you. I will start sharing my screen and start the presentation. As already mentioned, please stop me and ask questions. I hope we are going to have an engaging discussion regarding this talk. So, what exactly have I planned? I've planned to answer at least 5 questions and clarify the concepts. And the first question is, of course, what is security? The second, what is resilience? The third, what is societal resilience? What is democratic resilience, in case there are any differences? And not lastly, the fifth question, how to enhance democratic resilience? I think that there is none of you that hasn't ever heard the term security, but I would ask you to share with me your thoughts. What exactly does security mean to you? Bianca, I will ask you because this is who I'm seeing on my screen. So.
Okay. So I think security is mostly safety measures. The safety measure that we have in regards to our country, in regards to protecting the sovereignty, either they are like, I don't know, physical, like you put in the presentation, or like physical maybe. But overall, I think there are like some specific measure that every country should have.
So security, in your perspective, is about measures we take
yes,
to improve our situation or keep it. Savannah, what do you think security is?
I would say it's a pretty similar definition of kind of both the proactive and the reactive measures that a state has in place for their own domestic but also international security.
Okay.
Military or technology, I would say, for the most part, or infrastructure.
You are right, but I will show you that security as a concept and as a reality at the same time is extremely complex. And there are at least 2 sides this complexity arises from. One side, it's the 3 components of the concept of security, and the second side raises from its 4th dimensions. So let's start with the components of the concept of security. What is security? You mentioned that security is about the actions that we take. Well, first of all, I would say that security is an objective reality. It's the reality that surrounds us as it is. And this reality, of course, encompasses actions that do not concern us, do not affect us. It encompasses actions that can become threats to us, and challenges and risks. And not lastly, it encompasses opportunities for us to take in order to improve our situation, regardless what it is. So security is a security environment, first of all, and it creates opportunities and risks in all sorts of domains: military, economic, political, personal, psychological, social, environmental, and so on. It is defined by risks and opportunities, I mentioned, and of course it is influenced by our behavior, by human behavior. And I will follow up on all of the concepts. Secondly, security is a socially constructed reality. What does that mean? We have the objective reality as previously mentioned, but this reality is interpreted by us, by our own psychology. And when we say by us, I'm referring to all members of the society. The major part, of course, is the people, the citizens of each country that are not exactly trained in assessing the security environment. They are regular people with regular jobs, with different interests and different, let's just say, education. So, one second, I need to do some adjustments. The way they understand security may be close to the objective reality, or may be pretty far from this objective reality. And the second component of the socially constructed reality comes from those that are specialists in security. In security and in international relations, in social sciences and technological sciences and IT sciences and so on. And the third component of security comes from the security policies and strategies that communities and even individuals and and most likely states take in order to, like you mentioned, the actions they take in order to enhance the security, to reduce risks, and to increase opportunities. And this is where I would say that we can think of people that have political responsibilities, and people that work in state organization, in government organization, but also in private companies and critical infrastructures and so on. Why is it important? Because I said that our environment is shaped by the human behavior. And from this perspective, it becomes extremely important to assess this behavior and try to understand exactly how it is formed and how it is influenced. Well, this is a very simplified scheme. And basically, when we discuss of security behavior, the way we behave in relations to risks, threats, and opportunities, there are two major steps. The first step is it concerns the identification of the security environment as it is, as you have previously seen in the caption before. If we do not have the ability, the cognitive ability, the mental ability, the psychological ability to accurately identify and interpret the signals in the environment, we may pose ourselves in a big danger. It's just like not observing a fire and going through it and getting ourselves burned, of course. And the second part, it's about the reaction we take to what we assess. Do we assess correctly? Do we take the right reactions to mitigate the risks or not? So from this perspective, there are two possible outcomes: the protective behavior and the risk-generating behavior. The protective, of course, when we take the right actions and the risk generated, when we ignore the risks, when we ignore the threats, or when we actually even amplify them. Not lastly, we have to understand that the security behavior and security itself is a compromise. And why it is a compromise? Because we have to keep a certain balance between the resources we have and between the risks we can identify and manage. And given the complexity of our world, it becomes more and more important to be able to tackle this compromise, to keep the balance, if you can, and you can understand what I mean. And we'll see in the forthcoming presentation. Any questions so far? It's all clear? Okay. I mentioned that. Yes, Nicoleta.
I don't have an actual question, but what you said, especially in the first slide, reminds me of one of my favorite security definitions. I think it's Wolfers. And he says that from an objective point of view, security is the absence of threats to acquired values, while from a subjective point of view, is the absence of fear that those values will be attacked. And now, of course, it's a question which, for each society or community or etc., which are those values or those products. It can be, of course, like infrastructure or actual, ideological values. And I felt like it goes very well with what you said in the first slide. And it encompasses it in a more resumed, summarized way.
Okay, thank you. This is the point, because well, actually, this theoretical part of assessing and understanding security, it was a work I've done in my first part of my PhD research, and it was pretty complicated because, for example, security has at least 150 definitions, if I'm not wrong, in international literature, and it was extremely complicated for me to understand what exactly is security. Okay, it is a complex concept, but not only why, how we can understand it. And in order to answer this question, how we can understand security, I've tried to go a little bit further, and I've tried to assess security from a four-dimensional perspective, and this is what it came up: a model of security, a four-dimensional model of security. So, in order to answer the question, what is security? I think that this diagram reflects what the complexity of the security concept, and we will try to identify and discuss each of these dimensions. So first of all is the security subject dimension. Who do we protect? Do we protect the state? Do we protect the society? Do we protect the security? And this is the main axis of my model. And to try to explain, actually, in the specific literature, in the security literature, the concepts were developed vice versa. So the traditional concept of security is related to state security. After that, in the 90s, after the fall of Berlin Wall and of communism in Eastern Europe, and the disintegration of the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, the societal security concept was drafted. And in the 90s, by the United Nations, one of the organizations by the United Nations, the human security concept was emphasized in this in the literature. The second dimension is the dimensions I've named to be the security sources dimension. what exactly do I want to say by this? I want to say that each of the security subject needs ways to enhance its security, needs sources of security, to where to put its actions and how to, well, actually how, not where, how to put its actions and enhance its security. And the first part is, of course, at its own level. Individual security, when we refer to individual securities, we mean that individuals take actions to improve themselves. If we refer to the society, it's about societies. If we refer to the states, it's about the states. What's the actions by itself each state takes, but at the same time, the states can take joint action when they combine different entities or capabilities, or, for example, a governmental organization with a private company to enhance the cybersecurity of a specific field, or take collective actions when, for example, we refer to the actions taken at the level of EU or NATO, because these are collective organization, collective security organization, or through cooperation, bilateral or international cooperation, actions taken at United Nations level, for example. The third dimension, it's the security environment dimension. It's basically what we said in the first slide, that the first component of security, the reality as it is, with its actions, with its human behavior actions, including those human behavior actions, regardless they are actions by leaders, state leaders, or organization leaders, or whatsoever. How this happens? This happens, well, in this diagram I have actually forgotten to mention. So we have three types of a security environment, and not only two. It's the national type, of course. It's the regional type and the international type. It's quite similar with the security sources dimension. What I have emphasized recently is that this type of security environment takes place in two contexts. The classical, traditional context, geopolitics, where geography, power, politics, economics, transportation means, and so on, are extremely important. And at the same time, at cyber political level, due to the emergence of cyberspace and all sorts of cyber actions and activities. The fourth dimension, domains of insecurity and resilience. Where do these threats and opportunities come from? They come from five main domains, traditional domains, and I will explain where I've got these domains from. And a very recent domain, the digital domain, the actions that were taken in the digital domain. Are they important? Yes, they are. And what do they create? Maybe it's the first time you see it. They create a phygital space. And in the forthcoming presentation, I will also explain this concept to you. So when we discuss of insecurities and resilience, the actions we take to adapt and improve ourselves, we discuss of different domains. We can take as reference these domains. I have taken them from the societal security concepts, but you can also go further, more detailed, and more specific for each country or organization. The last domain is the digital domain. Why did I try to emphasize it because I think that this is the domain that is actually changing our entire society and world. As you already may know, from a historical point of view, we had different types of society. Regarding them, reporting them actually at the technological evolution. And now it's the fifth stage, the fifth revolution, if I'm not wrong. So this is exactly what the digital domain does. It has a transformative impact, and it becomes not only a source of power and positive change, but also a source of vulnerability. Why this domain? Why this model can be? Why this model is important, in my opinion, because it provides a framework in action to exactly see and assess, and of course try to identify solutions, how risks or opportunities, how risks and opportunities can affect security. And I would ask any of you to provide a different example from that stated in the slide. Can anyone do that? Nobody?
Paul, could you maybe repeat what you mean by different from the slide?
I meant that on the slide, it's a model on how a risk has impact on each of the security dimension I have explained. And I was asking if you can provide a different example. The example in the slide is on state-sponsored disinformation campaign. So my perspective was if you have other example. Is this domain actually clear for anyone? Do you have any questions? You are quite silent and I'm not, I cannot assess. Aureliano, you don't seem convinced.
I have a quick question.
I am extremely convinced. I hope you can hear me well. No, I was just thinking about some examples, and I suppose a cyber attack would be something that will fit this this particular model and framework. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a cyber attack would be a good example.
Yeah, it's a very good example. Savannah, please.
Yeah, I guess with the integrated model, is it have to be entirely digital or could it be?
I'm sorry, but can you repeat? Your sound is pretty
Sorry.
low.
Maybe kind of like when the Belarusian migration crisis happened and there were the campaigns after the fact regarding how it was handled on the eastern border, maybe something like that as an example.
Yes, okay. Let's try to use this model. So we have, you mentioned, let's try to use the same framework. So in which domain the threat originated?
Well, I think it originated from misinformation campaigns as well, where first and then after the fact, the narrative was just changed around. So I would think that would still be under the misinformation bubble.
Okay, so from the social domain, it originated in the social domain. Okay, and what subjects did this threat, this crisis affect?
I would say human security for the most part, because there were thousands of refugees at the border, I would think.
Okay. But also maybe societal security, because they affected the communities around the border. They had to organize, they had to prepare food or whatsoever, maybe. I don't know.
Both.
Yes, of course. This is why I think that this model is good, because it helps us understand exactly how the threats spread, and this is helpful to identify how to address the response. And further on the presentation, I will explain more. Okay, so the response. What type of response do we need to this to this threat, this crisis?
I think to the crisis that also Savannah mentioned, the response that is put on the slide, like a joint response, a joint statement, is the best option, in my opinion, because it signifies like cooperation and overall agreement.
Okay, a joint or maybe collective response in case that specific country is part of a collective organization. Yes, very good. And the environment it plays out, of course, it's national and regional, because it's only the border of two countries. It didn't spread too much in the in an entire region or continent. For example, if I may make a comparison with the migration that United States faces from the entire South America. So it's rather different. The effects are rather different. Okay, so I hope this model is helpful to understand. Yes, Nicoletta, please.
I wanted to give an example before I go, but if we pass that, I only want to ask about the presentation. Maybe you can send it also on WhatsApp for us
Okay,
to.
sure.
And about the example, I was thinking maybe something like, for example, an earthquake that can be a security threat, but that comes from another dimension. And if I pass through them, the domain will start from environmental, of course, but it will affect social and economical as well. Depends on the how big it is. Maybe even political. Depends on how the actual government will take care of what's happening after the earthquake. It threatens, I think, both human and societal security. The response, depending on, usually is like a international cooperation response, also depending how many countries are involved. And the environment, I think, here I'm not sure. It should be, I think it's international, usually such type of crisis,
Well,
right?
I have some comments. Well, I would say that an earthquake would affect all security subjects, including the state, because the state is the one that needs to provide specific responses. When it comes to sources and responses, you are completely right. And when it comes to the security environment it affects, I wouldn't go to international unless it's an entire planet earthquake, because usually earthquakes go at a national or regional level. They affect one country or two or three countries. And now I'm thinking of the massive earthquake from Turkey 1 year ago or 2 years ago at the border with Iraq. And I know that earthquake was quite massive. So this is a model you can use to better understand exactly the world around us and how it affects us, and more importantly, how we can respond. Let's go a little bit further. I mentioned about the societal security, and this is what I want to focus on. Why? Because when it comes to resilience and democratic resilience, I think it's the concept that explains the best democracy, societies, communities, and how we can actually improve our response. So this concept was established in the 90s by Barry Buzan and Ollie Over. They worked at the so-called the European Security School from Copenhagen, and they said that state security is important, but it's not the only one important, because the society's security is much more important. No state can survive without a safe and secure society. Basically, this is the concept. And what was unusual or specific, or the novelty, is that they've changed the focus from the state and mainly from the military security to society and its legislative components. So Barry Buzan is the father of this concept. It's the security object shifts to society, and mainly besides the threats to state, it focuses on identity, culture, and language. Do you think such a view is important or not? Can we discuss about identity? Do we have identity crisis, threats in the current international security? Yes, no? Yes, Anna, please try to respond without.
Okay. So I think that identity crisis would be the migrations that came from the Middle East. And even though there are families that raised kids in the European Union or somewhere else, because of the shift that they have suffered and they learned a new culture, they find it hard to find their identity. And from this, we can find radicalization, exclusion from the social environment, and we can see all the problems that led to some crisis and terrorist movements.
Okay, it's a very good answer. Please, Roxana.
Yeah, I was about to kind of say the same thing, but I would also add that I believe that this threat to our identity and culture and language is weaponized by some groups in our society in order to gain power, and a lot of it is very artificial. Yeah.
Yes, it is, but maybe this is what we are doing. We are discussing the concepts, trying to understand them in order to identify better responses, because this is what you are supposed to do at the end of this fellowship, right?
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. I did not mean for it to be like a response to that. I just wanted to
of course
add to
not.
the answer.
Of course, it was completely out of my thought. I was just emphasizing that. Alexander, please.
For the identity crisis, we also have, the division between nationalism and also Europeanism. So, the people that are more with the traditional view of the nationalist parties and other that are the more pro-European parties. So this is also a division inside Europe.
Yes, and thank you, Alexander. Actually, this comment introduces the next slide, because Busan's framework discusses three main types of threats to society. And what you said, the difference between nationalisms and those who are pro-European, for example, I think are very well explained by the first category of threats. Why? Because the societal security framework says that the first category of threats comes from the national state identity. What happens? Most of societies are organized in states, even though we cannot exactly put an equal sign between societies and states. Like in Romania, for example, significant numbers of Romanians have chosen to find better conditions outside of the borders of Romania and have fled. This doesn't mean that they are not part of the Romanian society, even though they are not living in Romania. And so this happens to the majority of threats. So what exactly says the theory? It says that the threats to identity, to state identity. So I make it clear, it's not personal identity. It's not as I view myself as non-binary or whatsoever. It's about the identity to the state, to the fact that I feel Romanian or I feel in a specific region like Bucharest capital. I feel I belong to Bucharest. So this is my identity. I choose to emphasize from a state perspective. So the first type of threat is the migration. Of course, migration can change the component, the social component and identity component of any society. And this is why, for example, I'm thinking now of Germany 10 or 15 years ago when Angela Merkel was prime minister, and the scandals her policies provoked to accept Syrian refugees and grant them citizenships or other living rights in Germany, and how that affected, and maybe the current state in Germany, the fact that the populist parties have gained significant scores at elections is a consequence of that action. The second type is horizontal competition, when cultures basically dispute each other through culture. And the third one is vertical competition, and this involves integration or disintegration from higher hierarchies. And from this perspective, we can understand the European Union and the way some citizens want more integration, because this is they feel that this is their identity, EU is their identity, and a different category of citizens feel exactly the opposite, think and take actions in that perspective, because they feel that being pro-European, being European, is a contradiction with being Romanian, for example, or Bulgarian, or any other country in the EU. At the same time, the framework, the societal security framework, discusses two more types of threats from sectors, and this is why you have seen in the second diagram, the security dimension diagram, the military, political, economic, and environment sectors, because this is what they said, this is what the theory says. And I have added the digital sector because I remind you that this theory was first established in the 90s, a time when digitalization was not extremely developed. And the other category of threats comes from or addresses the social cohesion. Basically, discrimination, equality, and the abuse of human rights, minorities, social violence, and any other type of reactions that affect the liberty of people. Is it clear so far? This was the theory, the main theory, and let's move on. You have seen, well, actually, at this diagram that I've mentioned the phygital space. Does anyone know what phygital space is? Has anyone heard of the term before?
I heard of it of the Euro-Atlantic Resilient Forum. I heard of it in Bucharest for the first time, and I got the term from there. But if you want to explain it again, I will also hear.
Yes. So, well, actually, this is a term that means a synergy between physical space and digital space. It first appeared in 2007 or 17, I'm not exactly sure, by an American marketing company who tried to emphasize, to differentiate the differences between solely purely digital actions and physical actions. What you see in the diagram is my perspective on the phygital realm. What exactly happens? When we have digital space, it encompasses three main, let's just say, activities and technologies. Digital space encompasses the digital technologies itself, which are physical. It encompasses the software and the data flows. What happens and why is this connection with the physical space? Well, first of all, as mentioned, the technologies, the digital technologies do sit in the physical space. We have laptops, we have radars, we have, I don't know, there are so many drones, so many technologies. And this is one of the connection. And the second connection is provided by humans, by users that are present in physical space and conduct activities in digital space. I have also mentioned the biological space domain. Why? Can anyone guess, or does anyone know why I have also chosen the biological domain?
I can only think of the pandemic.
No. I have chosen the biological domain because of biotechnologies, which are technologies in biological realm that improve different types of diseases or human capacities. And maybe the most common expression to think of biotechnologies or technologies are I'm sorry, I cannot remember the term in English. Well, even recently you heard all sorts of news about all sorts of sensors that different types of people use to enhance their memory, or different types of capacities, or different types of robotics that maybe does anyone know that device that is used in the heart surgeries to improve the beats of the heart and regularize them? Stan?
It's talking about a pacemaker, or?
Yes. So maybe that is one type of biotechnology that modifies the human behavior. What exactly happens? or at least how do I feel? How do I perceive this this process? Well, as mentioned, we are in the fifth, or we are entering the fifth stage of the technological revolution in human history, and I see it as a free phase process. And I also, in my understanding, we are entering, or we have already entered in its third stage. At first, we had the conversion of analog data into digital formats, the appearance of computers, of different types of networks. Afterwards, different types of software appeared, and the process of digitalization started. And meaning that this process encompassed all sorts of digital technologies and processes. Just imagine how a communication network works, how the mobile phone appeared, how the internet works, and so on. This is what I perceive as being a digitalization process. And now we have entered a new phase, the phase of digitalization, and I see it as a creation of synergy between social life, biological life, and technological life. And I will also provide examples, and I think that you can also do that. Can you give me an example of phygital process? Disinformation, social media disinformation is a phygital process.
I believe we can consider it is because it has different steps. It involves algorithm. It has a target audience, and all of these are made either by AI machines or by the program itself. So I would include it in this digital process.
Digital. This is what I'm trying to differentiate. So digitization, the fact that we have started to digitize information and create different sorts of computers. And I'm thinking of the 50s, I'm thinking of Alan Turing, and I'm thinking of the creation of the first computer. And if you know, if you had the curiosity to search to see how big they were at that time and what low capacity storage capacity they had. And after that, I'm thinking of the digitalization process, which started in, I would say, the 90s, with the appearance of computers, of internet, of all sorts of software. And now we are at the beginning of a new phase. I'm calling it the digitalization phase because it's, well, I'm trying to be to keep the concepts and develop them, when we are discussing of new types of relations and effects, because this is what actually the phygital realm means, that the humans involved in physical and digital and of course biological space, they create synergies, they create effects in digital space, in phygital space, in biological space, and all these effects have all sorts of impacts on other domains. And I'm specifically meaning that, for example, at physical level, just imagine, Aurelian mentioned a cyber attack. Just imagine a cyber attack that can provide an explosion on a different facility, for example. So it is a phygital effect. Just imagine on a social media campaign that boosts fear in a different type of community, and that fear is translated in the elections. And this is also a phygital effect. Just think of hacking a biotechnology and impacting the health or maybe life of the people that have that biotechnology. This is, when I refer specifically to biotechnology, this is still at the beginning of its development, but in a medium perspective, I think it's also going to be a real threat. So basically, this is the phygital domain. The impact of digital and synergies of digital technologies in physical life. And what I've done was to analyze this impact, to try to analyze this impact from a dual perspective, the opportunities and risks of digital technologies on each of the sectors previously mentioned in the theory. So on the military, on the society, on the environment, economy, and politics. And what I want now from you is to each of you to give me at least one example of threats provided or opportunities provided by digital transformation in any of the field. And I will start with Alexander because he's the first one I'm seeing here.
Well, I'm not exactly sure, but maybe some kind of cybersecurity attack that might include some malware that might damage the information.
Let's try to be specific. Cybersecurity attack on a weapons company that provides drones, for example. I don't know, it just came up to me. Okay, Anna. I think she left.
Okay.
Aurelian?
No, I'm here. I'm here. Just my camera is off. Okay, so what threat? I would go to society, and I would say that what's digital, it's not fully legally framed, so there's no control. And this lack of control can lead to multiple threats from illegal trading, disinformation, false information, and so on.
Yes, very good example. Thank you. Aurelian?
Yeah, so I was thinking more of a supply chain attack, which can be digital in nature, but it can take the form of different types of attacks, like a ransomware attack. It can be an advanced persistent threats in the forms of state-sponsored attack on a part of a supply chain. And a more specific example, I think it's the NotPetya attack, which happened in Ukraine a couple of years ago, and it spread from Ukraine all the way to the US and Europe because the particular malware that the Russians used in order to attack the network of computers from Ukraine spread all the way to all these big shipping companies, and it ended up affecting ports in the United States and in Western Europe and so on.
Yes, very good. Bianca?
I will go to the politics side. So I believe when it comes to fake news can adopt a new way. I mean, we already see it like on social media, but also like how is it spreading across like news channels? I think it can affect deeply the politics in every country. And to see also the far right party rising more because there is no like a counterpart from the state, like a specific way to combat this news from the specific states.
Well, actually, given the complexity of the security concept, I would say that the era when the state could efficiently address a disinformation campaign is over.
Yeah, I agree.
And will never come back.
Yes.
Okay, Roxana?
Yeah, maybe a threat could be this the fact that our society and our communities are so disconnected that they cannot identify the real threats and respond to them in real time. For example, like the environmental threats. We are focusing so much on those imaginary ones, like the ones that are constructed by the far right, and we forget to address the ones that will actually affect us.
Did you get some gold from the Vidraru barrage?
I'm sorry, could you repeat?
Did you get some gold from the Vidaru barrage? I didn't, unfortunately. If I
I
had,
promise
I
I
wouldn't
did
have
not.
been here doing this webinar. Okay, Claudia.
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I'm thinking that the threat could be like people, the citizens are lost their faith in like political files. So maybe before it become an international problems, it start with national one, like an internal war, maybe.
An internal war, or maybe, let's just say, in a political class that lacks societal trust. Maybe this is the current situation in
Yes.
Romania. So I would say that
Yes.
it's a political, an internal effect that is boosted or is enhanced or provides support for an external disinformation campaign. Do you agree? At least in theory, so that we don't
Yes.
ask, we don't specifically analyze what happened in Romania at the last elections, presidential elections. But I think that this mainly is the explanation of the security environment at that time. Thank you, Savannah.
Maybe an intellectual property threat. So, for example, in China-US relations, since there's such a race to be the dominant country in AI, there's been kind of a targeting of more advanced AI technologies and just forms of IP threats.
Yes, yes, very, very good. Thank you. And Victoria?
I wanted to address the political side of the problem. As you may know, in Bulgaria right now, it's a big topic about the electronic voting machines, and I think this is can be an example of a phygital process because, like electronic voting machines, where a physical vote depends on digital systems, and it creates risk of manipulation and also loss of trust in transparency and in the democratic process overall.
Yeah, I didn't know that you had this problem.
Yes, we have protests about this right now.
These are the process. I've read something that it was extremely busy this period. I didn't have time to. Yeah, it's a huge problem. It's a
Yes.
huge problem because if you don't, if you lose trust, public trust in the election process, it goes.
It loses trust in the whole democratic process, in the democratic system.
Exactly. So let's move on. As you've mentioned, and from your example, I can completely say that we can discuss of a hierarchy of digital threats. we can discuss of the fact that they affect all security subjects with different impact. Here in the slide, you have different examples. Manipulation, disinformation, propaganda was pretty discussed. Cybersecurity, of course, is extremely common. What I would like to emphasize, what exactly does cyber war mean? Why cyber war and why not cyber threat, cyber attack? Is there any difference? Please, Roxana.
Now that you added this question, I'm not sure if my answer was correct, but maybe just using technology as a means to attack another state or gain power over it, influence inside it.
So it's about the effects. To be more specific, if there is a cyber attack and its effects remain in the digital space, for example, a cyber attack on a company website or their database, they are stealing the data. It's not an attack that has physical effects. It has only digital effects. This is a cyber attack, and it's not cyber war, not even in military strategy. Cyber war, it becomes when the cyber attack has physical disruptive effects. Does anyone know any example from history of a cyber war incident? And I'm thinking of a country that currently has protests, another country, not Bulgaria.
I know. I think it's. So sorry. You can go.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about Iran.
Exactly, Iran.
Yeah, but not about
and
the
I know
details.
I know the details. It was. I think it was under the. I think I'm not making a mistake. Under the Bush administration, and they had the famous Stuxnet attack. So the U.S. I think it's one of the first discovered state-to-state really major cyber attacks, in the sense that the U.S. used this type of malware called Stuxnet in order to infiltrate Iran's uranium enriching facilities.
As
And
far as I know, it was Israel, not U.S.
It was a malware co-developed by the Mossad and the US, but they were working together in order to develop it and to deploy it, because as you can understand, the ICS, the industrial control systems of a uranium enriching facility, they are air gapped, they have no connection to the internet. So it was very interesting to see how they managed to infiltrate this malware in these facilities, and they gradually destroyed the enrichment. I think they're called. I don't remember the name. They used specific hardware to enrich uranium, and they managed to like destroy these equipments one by one in such a random way that the Iranians didn't manage to really understand. Only after like a couple of years, what really happened to their equipment. And they managed to like cripple the Iranian nuclear enrichment program.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. Thank you. So this is a type of cyber war, activity. So it looks quite complicated in my perspective. This junction, this synergy between the physical and digital domain, the fact that the digital attacks can impact all domains, from cybersecurity and the classical one, to cyber attacks, to social one and environmental, and not lastly the biological domain, the health, and all other types of biotechnologies. And we certainly discuss of a dual vision. In my perspective, there is clearly a dual vision of digital transformation impact. But if we are still referring at the threats, I've tried to make a sort of a synergy, a sort of a cross-cutting diagram of effects, because we have effects that expand in one domain, like Aurelian mentioned, the cybersecurity attack on a specific infrastructure, digital infrastructure, but we also have effects that are multiple heavy sorry, we also have attacks that have multiple domain effects. And here you can see some of them because there are much more. And it's clear that we are currently discussing, we are in a phase of, let's just say, going from a single domain security perspective to a multiple domain, a holistic domain. And this is why I think that our response and resilience has to be improved and enhanced. What happens when we discuss of digital transformation? As mentioned, it offers opportunities, it offers risks, it impacts oh no, I have a different. It impacts all the previous domain: the military, the political, the economy, the social, the environment. Here we can see some of the mentions. In my PhD work, I've provided a detailed evaluation of the digital transformation. My focus was to take it from a global perspective, but with a focus on democracy and Euro-Atlantic community. And my evaluation provided around 45 risks and opportunities of digital transformation, 45 specific risks and opportunities. And why is this important? Because it offers an asset, a methodology to assess the security and provide resilience measures. What I think is very important is the effects, the risks that the digital transformation, this phygitalization I've mentioned, provides on society and individuals. The fact that we are heading to a sort of lone generation, I think it's the biggest threat. The biggest threat of digitalization. But of course, things are to be further discussed and maybe improved. What happens in the military domain? We are approaching a sort of an informational army with AI, with multi-domain operations, with robotics and all sorts of technologies that require less and less of human involvement. And at the same time, we are heading to different perils like autonomous arms and that sort of, let's just say, the glitch error. I'm not sure if anyone has seen Terminator. You are quite young. Do you know the movie? I think everybody knows the movie. Well, actually, this is the situation described in that movie. Autonomous arms that are out of human control and are trying to deplete human life from Earth. At the same time, cyber attacks, critical infrastructure attacks, and not lastly, the erosion of human skills. One of the risks I've mentioned is the cyber behavior risk. Can anyone guess what cyber behavior risks should mean? What I was referring? Victoria, what do you think cyber behavior should mean?
Maybe maybe sharing like false information online that will influence. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Well, I know it was my question to guess. I wasn't
Or
convinced.
maybe like is it something like if you have like low digital literacy and so it's easier for you to trust manipulated online content, for example, something like that?
The cyber behavior, well, actually, of course, it's a joint joint term from. Sorry, did someone want to say something? I wasn't. It's a joint term from cyber, of course, and behavior. The meaning is quite simple. The more we use digital tools, the cyberspace, the less human skills we have. And there are studies that have shown that, for example, in the military, the pilots who rely exclusively on automated software to pilot the planes lose their skills. And it's normal. It's like if you don't practice, you lose your skills, your human skills. And this is what cyber behavior risk means in from this digital perspective. Is it clear now? Okay, thanks. Let's go to a different domain, the economy. Well, actually, that was the promise, the initial promise of digitalization. We are going to develop digital tools, digital technologies, digital software, digital networks, and so on, in order to significantly improve our economic processes, our industrial processes. And this is what they did. And now, even with AI and AI agents and all sorts of technologies that promise an improved economy, because, for example, and these are data from my PhD, so they are verified data. It is a potential of some experts discuss or reports discuss of a potential of $100 trillion increase in the global economy. But at the same time, we are also witnessing a sort of digital divide. And this digital divide, it manifests in at least two perspectives. One perspective would be the fact that not everybody has the same technologies. Just imagine what types of technologies United States has, and what type of technologies maybe most of Africa country have, and the access the people have to those technologies. And the second perspective is about the skills the people have, because digital skills in Romania, for example, I'm convinced they are superior to digital skills in Sudan, and so on. Another effect, another risk of digital transformation, at least from AI agents, is a job loss. And I think that the young generation, but not only, should be pretty affected by this prediction. What I can say is that I've really tried to study to see exactly if the authors and reports and NGOs that have research on this theme agree. And I didn't actually find agreement. There are all sorts of estimates. Most of them are are not, how should I say, are not exactly data driven or data based, or at least that was my assessment. But this doesn't mean that there won't be a lost job process. Moving forward, what happens in the political domain? As the previous discussed domains, we have opportunities and risks, a more resilient state, a more responsive state, a more responsive society, where it's easier and easier to for citizens to be citizens, to pay taxes, to see exactly their financial debts, to see exactly the opportunities for jobs and so on. So digitalization and phygitalization can provide a more fair state, a more efficient state, but at the same time can provide a more controlling state and with mass surveillance, algorithms, and so on. What I can observe, and I think that this is an important difference when it comes to surveillance and algorithm manipulation, is the fact that up to digital technologies development, the state was the only one that had this power to control the population through its army, through its police forces, and so on. And due to the digitalization development, now some of the global companies have the same power too. I remember reading certain data, not only about the surveillance capabilities of different technologies, but also of the economic power of different digital companies. So if you have time, I invite you to see the reports, the graphs, the top 10, top 100 digital companies, and see exactly the company value. And I'm thinking of the fact that, if I'm not mistaken, Romania has around a GDP of around 400 or 500 billion euros. And there are global technology companies that worth even double. So that is a big thinking issue regarding their power. Anna, you mentioned the regulation power and the fact that this can turn into a risk, and I'm also thinking of this company and the power they have. In the political domain, we have previously discussed about manipulation, about what I say algorithmic monarchies, the fact that there is a sole control of information and a blur between reality, between truth, and maybe this explains the post-truth era we have entered, or at least some of the authors discuss about. Did you know that? Yeah, more and more it's a common fact. More and more we cannot be sure of the accuracy of the information we meet on social media and so on. And this is what happens, and this is the ground we have to take measures from. At the same time, when it comes to, let's just say, the impact of digital transformation at the personal level, I would say that, well, at least my theory is that we are currently assisting at hybridization of identity, exactly because of this mix between the activities we have in the physical life, the fact that we go to school, we go to work, we meet with friends, we go with families, and how often we do that, versus the time we spend on the internet or working with digital technologies, or maybe wasting time with digital technologies and so on. I'm not exactly sure if you ever tried to do a sort of analysis. How long do I spend interacting with people on work or family or friends, and how long do I spend on my phone or laptop every day? Anna, can you give me a sort of a balance from this perspective?
Well, from my personal experience, well, from what I've monitored, I realized that I spend more time that I actually thought I do on especially on my phone. But I'm limiting the application. So on the other hand, I'm just that person that never responds. So I guess I'm on the bright side.
I see, which is a very
And
good.
I will write a series recommendation in the chat for you.
Thank you.
Just because we were talking about CCTV and manipulation, and this is a really good series on the subject of control.
Thank you. Any recommendation is very good. Okay. We will discuss more about individual impact. And not lastly, the environmental, the digital the technologies actually do have the promise and the potential to, let's just say, repair our planet. Because you all know what happened in the Industrial Revolution, and the fact that this is why we have these types of global pollution and emission, because of those technologies. And maybe these type of new technologies and innovative technologies have the potential to repair or diminish the impact. But at the same time, at least now, we are also at the point where we are having a crisis of electronic waste, of energy consumption, of even environmental issues, because pollution can also be emphasized, created through construction of an AI plant or AI energy hub and so on. There are all sorts of, if you are interested in the subject, there are all sorts of documentaries on YouTube on this subject, even on the latest AI plant constructed by OpenAI. Okay, so we've discussed about security, the concept of security. We have discussed about societal security. We have discussed about digital transformation. Now it's time to discuss about resilience. What is resilience? Resilience is capacity to adapt. Well, at the same time, also as let's say, similarly to the concept of security, where not all authors agree, the same situation happened in resilience. But we can distinguish different perspectives that can help us clarify. It's clear that due to the digital transformation, when we discuss risks and opportunities and measures of resilience, we are assisting at a very widespread of risks. We are currently in a process of going from stability to complete volatility, to what I say hybridization of conflicts and opportunities. This is why the risks and opportunities are increasing so much that it's more and more difficult to actually follow up. Resilience at its core, it's a capacity to adapt and advance. The main component is the fact that you have to absorb a shock, you have to adapt to a shock, you have to advance from that type of crisis to an improved condition. What I see, and another concept I've worked, is the concept of innovative resilience. I think it's very important. If you remember, I've started this presentation saying that the first component of security is the security environment, and the security environment has risks and opportunities. I think this is very important, never to forget that this is life with risk and opportunities. And consequently, when we discuss of resilience, we have to take into consideration, we have to follow all the opportunities we can identify. From a classical perspective, resilience encompasses 4 dimensions: robustness, redundancy, resistance, and preparedness, but is much more. Why is much more? Exactly from what I've said in the previous at the previous slide, the fact that it needs to identify risks and also identify opportunities in order to improve your condition, no matter if you are individual or society or state. If you are resilient when you can do that. As a hierarchy, well, we discussed the general concept of resilience, but we also have other concepts of resilience, and I think that they are interconnected, and this diagram can show how they are interconnected. At the same time, if you remember the dimensions of security diagram and the fact that we have human security, we have societal security, and not lastly, we have state security. This is sort of the way they correlate. Basically, when we discuss of security at the societal level, at the community level, we have societal resilience, and this means the collective, the community, the strength of the community, and that comes from what different authors and institutions call to be the whole of society resilience, meaning that you put together governmental agencies, civil societies, private companies, academic community and research community, and not lastly, individual citizens. And this type of the resilience addresses the threats to the community, like threats to identity, threats, cybersecurity threats, and much more. The second type is democratic resilience, and this type of resilience is subsequent to societal resilience, because it basically refers to the capacity of a society, of a democratic society, to remain resilient. What you have in the diagram, the rule of law, the separation of powers, human rights, and political accountability. This is what the EU perspective, because EU has different types of documents referring to this type of security. And not lastly, the psychological resilience, the individual resilience, each of our capacity to resist and cope with the adversities of this digital transformation. I also have presented a modern democratic resilience framework to understand what happens. You will have this presentation, so you'll have a lot of time to analyze it. And of course, whenever you want, you can feel free to ask me. And not lastly, the last question and the last perspective is how to improve our resilience. What exactly must be done? My perspective has let's just say, two directions. To improve the resilience of the system we are, of our society, of our community, no matter how large or how small, of our state, of course. And this is something we can let's just say, influence. We are going to try at this fellowship to influence this system. Like I mentioned, try to find a policy brief, trying to find a certain assessment, and so on. And the second part is our responsibility, what we can do in order to improve our resilience. And this, I think, it's extremely important. When it comes to institutions, the best solution in my perspective is to increase transparency through the use of technology, and also to adopt governments and all sorts of companies to adopt anticipatory governance, meaning strategic foresights and AI-assisted predictive analysis as one pillar. And the second pillar, to increase what I've mentioned to be a cognitive effective firewall. Why do I say that? This information is obviously a significant threat, a permanent threat, actually. I'm not exactly sure how we can overcome it, how we can mitigate it if we do not have a full whole of society strategy. Cultivating a cognitive effective firewall starts from the reality, meaning that manipulation and narratives and fake news are not affecting only our cognitive ability, but also our emotional. They are based on our emotions. They affect our emotions. They provoke to us different negative emotions in order to spread. So this is why I think it is important. Maybe when it comes to white papers and projects we are going to address, this perspective gives you support and ideas. And the second part, what we can do to improve ourselves. I've mentioned again different strategies, and I'm referring to psychological inoculation. If you remember that diagram with the spreads of false information, I think we as a mentality have to change our perspective in order to address any digital content as possible false content. So instead of believing that that is fact or a certain information, just to start from the conclusion that it may be false, and let's just check if it's free or not. For example, for those who are connected with me on LinkedIn, maybe you have noticed that one of the pictures in my profile is the question everything picture. I think that this is the type of inoculation I am referring to. We have to change this mentality. And the second strategy, to try to be aware of the fact that we have mental errors. There are digital biases. We need to slow down, like Anna, what you said. Slowing down meaning not working slower, but limiting our time on social platforms, on our phones, the digital news consumption, and so on, and using that time for physical activities. And at the same time, have to try to find mechanisms to combat in-group bias. We all have different type of groups, WhatsApp and physical groups that support, have different echo chambers effect. This is also a term that in the past year is more and more popular. So as a conclusion, we have to slow down, or this is my perspective. Maybe you have a different perspective. I would love to hear that. We have to slow down. And the fast and slow thinking comes from Daniel Kahneman. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's quite a famous American Jewish psychology researcher, and he studied the cognition, this function in human beings, and its conclusions are quite simple and obvious. we have two types of thinking. The fast thinking, which is the majority type of thinking we are using, which involves more, which involves little cognitive functions. We don't actually stay and think. We just, for example, we grab something without thinking if it's dangerous or not. And it's mostly based on our assumptions about the environment we are, and the slow thinking process, which is much longer, and at the same time it's much more accurate, because this is the process, the slow one is the process that eliminates most, if not all, the biases we can encounter. And not lastly, it's important to develop our emotional guard. This is what I've called it, because the threats provided from online manipulation, online interference, social media, the effects on our self-perception, the influence on our self-worth, and so on, is a must to be addressed. And the strategies are pretty simple: to monitor ourselves, to cut the social media time or platform time, to learn or to learn more of cognitive behavior techniques, how we can improve our techniques, what we can say about ourselves, and at the same time to realize that we are disturbed by our perception of the events and not by the event itself. For example, what comes to mind is the war in Ukraine. The war in Ukraine does not, at least here in Romania, happily and unfortunately for the Ukrainians, does not affect us. But our perception and the news consumption, it does, at least for some of us. And this is why we need this emotional guard to learn how to emotionally regulate ourselves. Basically, this is the world we are living in. This is how I perceive democratic resilience. And that's about it. I hope I made myself clear. I hope I didn't get to bore you too much, because the interaction was not due to the presentation, the interaction, this was not in a very interactive webinar. If you have any questions, please address to me now. I know you are all tired and it's pretty late, but if not, I will give you the presentation, of course, and anytime you can ask me questions. And I think it's going to be, or at least this is what I've tried to work on it in order to make it useful for you in the project's phase. So if you don't have any other questions, thank you. A 2-hour webinar, not very short. I hope it was useful. I will give you the presentation as long as my my computer allows me to transform it into PDF, because now it's not working. I don't know why. And see you soon. And next week, another webinar. I hope it's going to be interesting. I will give you a link to prepare questions in advance, because maybe it's better this way. So have a nice day or evening, depending on which side of the Atlantic you are. Thank you very much for your attention, and see you soon. Bye.
Thank you
so much. See you
Thank
soon.
you.
Bye.